Tonight, we open the story of a man who lived a century ahead of his time, a man who saw our modern world long before it existed. Phones, wireless signals, robots, even remote machines. He predicted them all. His name was Nikola Tesla, and the future he imagined will shock you. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Night. The future appeared. The night was cold in Colorado Springs. The sky was dark, and the wind moved slowly across the empty land. In a small building far from the town, a man worked alone. His name was Nikola Tesla. He stood in the center of his laboratory, surrounded by wires, metal coils, and strange machines that filled the room with a blue light. Tesla did not sleep much. He believed that ideas arrived when the world was quiet, and on this night, the world felt silent, almost waiting for something to happen. He walked between his machines with calm steps, checking every detail. The large Tesla coil in the room began to rise with power. A soft humming sound filled the air. He stopped for a moment. He looked at the coil as if he was watching a living thing breathe. Then he turned a switch. A strong flash of electricity exploded into the air. Blue lines of light jumped from one metal surface to another. The whole building shook softly. Outside, the sky lit up for a second, as if a storm had appeared out of nowhere. But Tesla did not move back. He watched carefully, as if trying to catch a message hidden inside the light. For years, Tesla had imagined a world powered by energy that moved through the air. A world where people no longer needed wires, fuel, or heavy machines. And tonight, he believed he was one step closer. He felt the power of the coil rise higher and higher. Sparks danced across the room. The sound grew louder. And then something unexpected happened. The lights suddenly changed rhythm. The electric lines moved in a strange pattern, almost like a heartbeat. Tesla leaned closer. He felt the floor vibrate under his feet. The coil released a long, sharp wave of light that filled the room. At that moment, Tesla saw something that made him freeze. He saw a picture in his mind. It was clear, strong, and nothing like the ideas he had before. He saw people standing far from each other, holding small devices in their hands. He saw their voices traveling across the world without wires. He saw cities connected by invisible signals. He saw information moving through the air as fast as electricity. And he saw a world where knowledge, messages, and news crossed oceans in seconds. The vision lasted only a moment, but it changed him. When the light disappeared, the room returned to silence. The coil slowly lost its power. The blue light faded. Tesla stood alone in the darkness, breathing quietly. He tried to understand what he had just experienced. Was it imagination? Was it science? Or was it something else? He sat down at his desk and began to write quickly. His hands moved fast, capturing every detail before it escaped his mind. He wrote about wireless communication, about energy traveling across the world, and about a global network that connected all people. He believed that one day these ideas would shape the future, but he also knew that the world was not ready to hear them. Tesla looked around his laboratory. The machines were silent now, but he could still feel the energy in the air. The vision stayed with him like a memory from a place he had never visited. He knew this night would not be forgotten. Something had opened inside him. A small door that allowed him to see what others could not see. Outside, the town was sleeping. No one knew that inside the small building on the hill, a man had just imagined the foundation of modern communication. No one knew that Tesla's quiet experiment would one day lead to ideas that the world depends on. Wireless networks, mobile devices, and instant messages that travel across the planet in less than a second. Tesla stood up again. He returned to the machine and touched the cold metal. He believed that science was not just about machines. It was about understanding the deep patterns of the universe, and he felt, for the first time, that these patterns were showing him the future. He turned off the last switch. The room went dark. A thin line of moonlight entered through the window and touched the floor. Tesla walked toward the door. He paused for a moment, listening to the quiet wind outside. He knew he was alone in his ideas, but he also knew he was right. The world would one day follow the path he had just seen. He opened the door and stepped outside. The night felt different now, bigger, wider. The future did not feel far anymore. It felt close, almost here. And this was only the beginning. Chapter 1. The night. The future appeared. The night was cold in Colorado Springs. The air moved slowly, and the land around the laboratory was silent. Inside the small building, a blue light touched the walls. It was the light of electricity, the light of a dream. Nikola Tesla stood in the center of the room. His eyes were tired, but bright. He had been working for hours, maybe for days. Time did not matter to him. Ideas mattered. Energy mattered. And tonight, he felt something unusual in the air, something waiting to be discovered. He walked between his machines. Coils, wires, metal plates. Everything was ready. The large Tesla coil stood tall, almost like a tower of fire. Tesla touched one of the switches. The machine woke up with a deep humming sound. The room vibrated softly. Tesla watched it with calm focus. He believed that electricity was not only power, it was a language, a bridge between the world we know and the world we could create. He felt the air change. He felt the energy rise. Then he turned the second switch. A burst of blue light jumped across the room. Sparks moved in long, beautiful arcs. The sound grew stronger, like a storm trapped inside four walls. Tesla did not step back. He leaned forward, studying every movement of the light. The electricity grew brighter. The pattern changed. The light began to pulse, once, twice, then again. Tesla watched closely. The rhythm was strange. It felt almost alive. The floor shook under his feet, and then everything became brighter. For a moment, the room disappeared in a flash of white and blue. Tesla's heart raced. He saw lines of light moving like waves. He saw shapes forming inside the glow. He felt something open inside his mind. A door he had never touched before. A picture appeared. Clear. Strong. Impossible to ignore. He saw people, far from each other, speaking through small devices in their hands. He saw voices traveling across oceans without wires. He saw messages moving through the air. He saw a world connected by invisible lines of energy. He saw something that looked like the future. The vision struck him deeply. It felt real, not imagined. The light around him began to fade. The coil slowly quieted down. The hum softened. The sparks disappeared. The laboratory returned to darkness. But Tesla's mind did not. He stood still for a long moment. His breathing was slow. His thoughts were fast. What had he just seen? Was it a dream created by electricity? Or a truth waiting to be discovered? Tesla walked to his desk and sat down quickly. His hands shook slightly, but he began to write. Page after page, ideas, notes, sketches. He wrote about wireless communication. He wrote about small handheld devices. He wrote about a global system that allowed anyone to send a message across the world in seconds. He did not know the word internet. He did not know the word smartphone. But he understood the idea behind them, the heart of the future. When he finished writing, he looked around the quiet room. The machines were dark again. The energy was gone. But the feeling inside him was still strong. It was the feeling that the future was not far. It was close. And he had touched it. Tesla stood up and walked back to the coil. He placed his hand on the cold metal. It felt different now. Not just a machine, but a key. A key that had opened a window into another time. Outside, the night was calm. The sky was black, full of stars. The town below was sleeping. No one knew that in a small building on a lonely hill, a man had just imagined something the world would take another century to build. Tesla opened the door and stepped into the night. The wind touched his face gently. He looked at the sky for a moment. He felt small, yet connected to something greater than himself. He whispered softly to the darkness, "One day, they will understand." He walked away from the laboratory. The door closed behind him. The world around him was silent again, but the future was no longer silent. It had spoken to him, through light, through energy, through a moment that lasted only a few seconds. But those seconds were enough. They changed everything. Chapter 2. A World Connected Without Wires. The morning sun rose slowly over Colorado. The light touched the hills, the trees, and finally the small laboratory where Nikola Tesla had spent the long night. Inside, the machines were still silent. But Tesla was not resting. His mind was still filled with the strange vision he saw. A world where people spoke across great distances without a single wire. He sat at his desk again, reading his notes from the night before. The handwriting was fast and rough. The ideas were strong. As he looked at the words, he felt the same feeling he had felt inside the storm of electricity. The feeling that something new was trying to enter the world. Tesla believed that energy moved like water. It traveled, it flowed, it connected. And if energy could move freely through the air, then information could move too. Messages, voices, ideas. He imagined that every person on the planet could talk to anyone, anywhere, without effort. He closed his eyes for a moment. He saw the picture again. A woman standing in a busy street, holding a small device in her hand. She spoke, and her voice reached another person far away. He saw people sharing news instantly. He saw a global web of communication. Fast, light, invisible. At that time, such an idea sounded impossible. Wires were everywhere. They carried every message, every signal, every call. Without wires, nothing could travel. At least that is what the world believed. But Tesla did not accept limits. He believed that nature held secrets waiting for people brave enough to look. He stood up and walked toward the window. The world outside was quiet. Horses pulled wagons on the road. People moved slowly in the morning light. Communication was simple and slow. Letters took days or weeks. News traveled late. Life moved at the speed of distance. Tesla imagined all of this changing, faster than anyone expected. He returned to his machines. He adjusted the coil, changed the angle of some metal plates, and began preparing a new test. His hands moved with confidence, but his thoughts were far ahead. He imagined a tower rising into the sky, sending signals across continents. He imagined people connecting through energy waves. He imagined a network without borders. He turned on the machine again. The hum returned. The air began to vibrate. Sparks rose like blue rain. Tesla watched carefully. He wanted to understand how far the signal could travel. He wanted to understand how much information the waves could carry. For a moment, the room filled with a soft glow. Tesla felt a warm pressure in the air. He stepped closer. The coil responded with a long, sharp pulse. He smiled slightly. This was progress. This was a step forward. He wrote more notes. Wireless transmission. Global communication. Signal without wires. Personal device. He did not know what such a device would look like, but he knew what it must do. It must be small. It must be simple. It must connect every person to the world. He imagined children learning through it, families speaking across oceans, workers sharing ideas instantly, people in danger calling for help with a single touch. He could see the future, even if he could not build it yet. For the rest of the day, Tesla tested different distances. He walked outside with a small receiver. Each time the coil sent a wave, the receiver jumped with energy. Tesla measured the strength of the signal. He measured how the air carried it. He measured how much information it could hold. The sun moved slowly across the sky. By evening, Tesla stood again inside the laboratory. His clothes were dusty. His hands were tired. But his eyes were bright. He now believed something completely. The world would one day be connected without wires. He also knew something else. Something harder. The world was not ready. People feared new things. Companies feared losing control. Investors wanted quick results, not dreams. Tesla understood that his ideas were far ahead of his time. And he knew that bringing the future into the present required more than science. It required patience, courage, and sometimes sacrifice. He sat down again. He looked at his machines, quiet and still. They were simple compared to the vision in his mind, but they were the first step. Every great change begins with one small light, one spark, one moment. As the night fell again, Tesla stepped outside. The sky was full of stars. They looked like points in a giant map, each one connected to another. He felt a deep sense of peace. The universe itself seemed to whisper the same idea he had felt inside the laboratory. Everything is connected, even if the lines are invisible. He breathed deeply. One day, they will speak through the air, he murmured. The wind carried his words away, but the future carried them further. Chapter 3. The Dream of Free Energy. The days in Colorado Springs passed quickly for Tesla. Every morning he woke with new ideas. Every night he returned to the same thought. Energy should be free. Not controlled by wires, not owned by companies, not locked behind walls. It should move through the air like sunlight, open to everyone. This belief grew inside him for years. But now, after the strange vision of wireless communication, it felt even stronger. If people could speak across the world without wires, why couldn't they power their lives the same way? Why couldn't energy itself travel freely? Tesla stood inside his laboratory, looking at the large coil again. The machine stood like a symbol of everything he wanted to create. He imagined energy rising from the ground, moving into the sky, spreading across cities and villages, reaching every home. He touched the machine gently. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. At that time, the world depended on coal, wood, and oil. Power stations filled the air with smoke. Electricity moved through expensive cables. Companies grew rich from selling energy. Tesla saw a different future, a world where the poorest person could light a home without paying anything. He believed that the earth itself held enough natural energy to power nations. He believed that energy could be taken from the atmosphere, from the ground, from the sun. He believed that the universe was full of invisible power that humans had barely begun to understand. He spent long hours studying this idea. He drew diagrams of towers that could send energy across continents. He imagined ships, factories, and homes powered by currents that traveled silently through the air. But this dream came with challenges. He needed stronger equipment. He needed more space. He needed money. Investors visited him from time to time. They admired his intelligence, but they feared his imagination. Free energy was not a business. It was not profitable. It did not create wealth for companies. Many of them left his laboratory confused or worried. One investor asked him, "Why would anyone pay for energy if you make it free?" Tesla looked at him calmly. "Why should they pay for something that belongs to the earth?" It was a simple answer, but not the answer businessmen wanted. Even so, Tesla did not stop. He believed that truth needed time, and he believed that the world would one day understand. He continued his experiments even when money was low. He continued to search for patterns in the air, even when the nights were cold and long. One afternoon, the sky above Colorado was filled with dark clouds. A storm was coming. Tesla stepped outside and watched lightning cut through the sky. He felt a strange excitement. Lightning was nature's own energy, wild, powerful, and free. He whispered to himself, "This is the language of the universe." He returned quickly to the laboratory and prepared a new test. He adjusted the coil and added new metal plates to collect atmospheric electricity. He wanted to understand how nature stored and released power. He wanted to understand how the earth breathed energy. He turned on the machine. The hum returned. The air began to rise with charge. The storm outside answered with another flash. Tesla felt the connection, the moment when human invention touched natural power. The coil glowed brighter. Sparks moved faster. The walls trembled softly. He watched the machine attract small bursts of energy from the storm. It was weak, but it was real. It was a sign. He quickly wrote notes. Atmospheric power. Global tower network. Unlimited energy. No wires, no cost. He imagined millions of people benefiting from this discovery. He imagined remote villages receiving power for the first time. He imagined cities without smoke. He imagined a cleaner world. But deep inside, he also felt something heavier, the resistance of those who controlled the industry. Free energy meant losing power, losing profit, losing control. Tesla knew his dream was not only scientific, it was also political. It challenged the world order. That night, Tesla sat near the window. The storm had passed. The sky was clear again. Stars shone like sparks in a giant coil above him. He felt both hopeful and tired. He believed in humanity, but he also understood human fear. He closed his eyes and imagined a future where electricity moved like wind, touching every home, every school, every hospital. A future where no child sat in darkness because of money. a future where science served people, not companies. He opened his eyes slowly. One day, the world will return to this idea, he said softly. And he believed it. Because truth does not disappear. It waits, like energy in the air. Chapter 4. Machines That Think. The world around Tesla was changing slowly. Factories were rising. New machines appeared in every city. People admired them, feared them, and depended on them. But Tesla saw something different. He believed machines could one day do more than move or carry or lift. He believed they could think. This idea was shocking in his time. A machine with a mind? A machine that makes decisions? Most people laughed at the idea, others felt afraid, but Tesla did not laugh, and he did not fear. He studied the patterns of electricity. He studied how signals moved through wires. He studied how the human brain used its own electrical currents. And then, quietly, he asked himself a question. What if a machine could follow the same rules? He spent long nights sitting at his desk, writing notes about artificial thought. He wrote about automatic responses, about memory stored inside circuits, about actions controlled by signals, not by hands. He imagined machines that could learn simple tasks, and later, more complex ones. In the early 1900s, this was more than science. It was imagination at the edge of reality. Tesla stood one morning inside his workshop, holding a small device he created. It looked like a toy boat, but it was something far more important. It moved by itself. It responded to signals. It followed instructions without any human touching it. People who saw it were surprised. "How does it move?" they asked. Tesla answered softly, "It receives a command. It understands, and then it acts." To him, this was the beginning of something greater, the first step toward a new world. He believed that machines would one day assist humans, protect them, and think with them. He believed that intelligence did not have to come from nature alone. It could also be built. But the world was not ready to follow his vision. Some newspapers wrote that Tesla was performing magic. Others claimed he was controlling the boat with hidden wires. Some people even said he was trying to create a dangerous weapon. Tesla ignored all of this. He focused on the idea behind the machine, the idea that thought could be created through energy. He continued his experiments. He designed simple circuits that reacted to sound. He created mechanical parts that responded to movement. He tested signals in different frequencies to see how machines understood them. Slowly, piece by piece, he built the foundation of what would one day become robotics and artificial intelligence. One evening, he sat alone with his notes. The laboratory was quiet. A single lamp lit the table. Tesla looked at a sketch he had drawn, a machine with sensors, memory, and the ability to choose actions. A machine that could adapt. He whispered to himself, "This is the future, and it will come." Outside, the world continued with its routines. Workers in factories used heavy tools. Families gathered around lamps. Newspapers spoke about wars, politics, and inventions. No one imagined that one day machines would speak, write, translate, drive, or even predict human needs. But Tesla saw it. Not clearly, not perfectly, but enough to understand the direction. He believed that intelligence was not limited to biology. He believed that electricity could carry more than power. It could carry logic, commands, and eventually decisions. If a machine could react, then someday it could learn. If it could learn, then someday it could think. Tesla wrote another line in his notebook. The human mind is not the only form of intelligence the universe can create. This thought stayed with him for years. Yet, building machines that think was not simple. The technology of his time was too weak. Components were too slow. Circuits were too large. Tesla understood that the world needed another century to reach the tools necessary for this vision. Still, he continued, he imagined hospitals where machines helped doctors, factories where robots worked beside humans, homes where devices responded to voice and movement, and a world where communication between humans and machines was natural and effortless. He believed that thinking machines would not replace humans. They would expand human ability. They would do dangerous tasks. They would process huge amounts of information. They would open doors to discoveries humans alone could not reach. Late one night, Tesla walked outside the laboratory. The air was cold, but the sky was full of stars. He looked at the night and felt a quiet hope. He knew that many people did not understand his ideas. Some even called him strange. But he also knew that the universe moved slowly toward truth, and that truth would eventually reveal itself. He closed his eyes for a moment and imagined the future. Machines guiding airplanes. Machines speaking in human voices. Machines solving problems in seconds. Machines helping humanity grow. He opened his eyes and smiled softly. Everything begins with a spark, he said, and tonight the spark is here. Tesla walked back inside, ready to continue his work. Because the future he imagined was not far. It was only waiting for the world to catch up. Chapter 5. The Prediction of Remote Warfare. The world was entering a new century. Nations were growing stronger. Armies were becoming larger. Technology was moving fast, but fear was moving faster. Many people believed the future would bring bigger weapons and more violent wars. Tesla believed something different. He believed the battlefield itself would change, and soldiers would no longer stand face to face. The idea began years earlier, when Tesla created a small boat that moved by remote control. To most people, it looked like a simple invention, but Tesla saw a door opening. If a boat could move by signal, what else could move? What else could act? What else could follow commands from far away? He imagined a future where machines fought instead of humans. No soldiers risking their lives. No armies marching across land. No young men dying for borders. He imagined warfare without human presence. This idea was shocking. People could not accept it. They believed war required men, courage, and physical strength. But Tesla saw something different. A future shaped by invisible waves, signals, and mechanical intelligence. One afternoon, Tesla prepared a new test inside his workshop. On a wooden table stood a small metal model shaped like a vehicle. It had wheels, sensors, and a hidden receiver. It was simple, yet far ahead of its time. Tesla picked up a small transmitter and pressed a button. The machine moved. It turned left. It turned right. It stopped, then moved again. Tesla watched it with calm confidence. Every movement confirmed what he already believed. Remote control was not a trick. It was the foundation of a new era. He imagined machines crossing a battlefield while the operators remained in safe places, far from danger. He imagined flying devices capturing images from above. He imagined weapons fired by signals, not by hands. To him, this was not science fiction. It was the future of war. A future he hoped would reduce human death. But the reaction from the world was mixed. Some military leaders were interested. They saw power in Tesla's idea. Others were afraid. They thought machines without humans were dangerous. Some newspapers wrote that Tesla wanted to replace soldiers with soulless machines. Tesla ignored the criticism. He believed his invention could save lives. He once said, "There is no need for a single human to die on a battlefield again." But people were not ready to understand. Still, Tesla continued his work. He studied how far signals could travel. He improved the receivers. He strengthened the motors. He imagined building a full system. Land machines, air machines, sea machines, all controlled from a distance. He even imagined unmanned flying devices collecting information and mapping terrain. The idea was so new that people laughed at it. Airplanes had just begun to fly, and Tesla was already imagining machines flying without pilots. One evening, Tesla sat alone in the quiet workshop. A storm was forming outside. Lightning flashed in the sky. He looked at his remote-controlled model and thought about the future. He knew wars would not end, but he hoped technology could make them less deadly. He wrote in his notebook, "A machine guided from afar. A machine that follows commands. A machine that enters danger instead of a human." These words became the heart of his prediction. Tesla believed every great invention had two sides, one that helped humanity and one that could harm it. He knew remote warfare could save lives, but he also knew it could create new fears. Still, progress does not wait for perfection. It moves forward, step by step. He imagined a future where nations fought with drones, robots, and autonomous machines. A future where intelligence and technology shaped battles more than strength. A future where war changed forever. At that time, this vision was far away. But Tesla could already see the direction. He understood that once humans learned to control machines from a distance, they would never stop improving the idea. They would build faster machines, stronger machines, smarter machines. And one day, the world would wake up and realize Tesla had predicted it all. The storm grew louder. Rain hit the roof. Tesla closed his notebook and walked to the window. He watched the lightning cut through the sky. It reminded him of a signal, powerful, invisible, and full of possibility. He whispered, "One day, they will understand why this matters." He stepped back into the room and looked at his small machine again. It did not look dangerous. It did not look powerful. But it carried an idea that would shape the next century. A future where humans sent machines into danger. A future where distance became a weapon. A future that Tesla had seen long before anyone else. And the world, slowly, step by step, moved toward it. Chapter 6. The Invention. No one was ready for. The years moved forward, and Tesla continued to work with the same quiet intensity. Every day brought a new idea. Every night brought a new question. But one idea stood above all others. An invention he believed could change the world more than anything he had done before. A tower. Not a normal tower. A tower that could send energy across the earth. Tesla called it the Wardenclyffe Tower. He saw it not as a building, but as a heart for the planet. A center that pushed energy into the air, sending power across oceans, mountains, and cities. He imagined a world where people did not depend on fuel, wires, or big power companies. A world where a single tower could light thousands of homes. He believed it deeply. He felt it strongly. He saw it clearly. But almost no one else did. Tesla began building the tower on Long Island. It rose from the ground like a giant metal dream. People who walked near it felt curious, confused, sometimes afraid. They did not understand how something so large could send energy without wires. Tesla explained it with patience. He said the earth could be used as a conductor. He said the atmosphere could carry electricity. He said the tower was only the first step, and many more would follow. Investors listened. Some were impressed, but others hesitated. Free wireless energy was not a business. Companies wanted profit, not freedom. They wanted control, not open access. Tesla needed money to finish the tower. And without it, the dream began to shake. One afternoon, Tesla climbed the structure. The air was cold. He touched the metal and imagined signals running through it. He imagined lights turning on in cities far away. He imagined entire nations sharing energy without borders. For a moment, he forgot the financial problems. He forgot the fears. He forgot the critics. He focused on the vision. A world connected by power, not by wires. But the world was moving in another direction. Big industries were rising. Oil companies were stronger. Power companies wanted customers who paid every month. They looked at Tesla's tower and saw a threat, not a future. Slowly, the support for the project disappeared. Tesla tried to save it. He redesigned parts. He spoke to new investors. He worked day and night. But the funds were not enough. The tower stood tall, but unfinished. It was full of potential, but silent. For Tesla, it was not just a structure. It was a symbol of what humanity could become, and what it was choosing not to be. One evening, Tesla sat alone inside the small building next to the tower. Papers covered his desk. Designs covered his walls. The air felt heavy. He closed his eyes and listened to the quiet around him. He imagined the tower alive, glowing, singing with energy. He imagined the power flowing into the world. He imagined a future built on cooperation, not competition. But when he opened his eyes, the room was still dark. He wrote in his notebook, "The world is not ready, but one day it will be." That sentence carried pain, but also hope. Tesla understood something important. The greatest ideas often arrive before their time. He was walking in a future that others could not yet see. In the following months, the project stopped completely. Workers left. Machines were shut down. Investors walked away. The tower remained standing, but without purpose. A giant reminder of a dream too big for its moment. Tesla visited it one last time. He walked around it slowly. He touched the cold metal. He looked up at the round top, reaching into the sky. It looked like it was waiting for the world to grow into its possibilities. He whispered softly, "You were born too early." Then he turned away. Years later, people looked at Tesla's designs again. Scientists studied his ideas. Engineers found value in his theories. Modern technology moved closer to the vision he had imagined. Wireless charging, global communication networks, satellite power, clean energy systems. Piece by piece. The world began to understand him. The tower was gone, but the ideas behind it stayed alive. Because ideas do not die. They wait, like seeds in the ground, until the world is ready to let them grow. Tesla continued his work with the same quiet hope. He believed the future would rise again, just as the tower once did. And one day, humanity would finish what he started. Chapter 7. The Legacy That Returned in the 21st Century. Time moved forward, and the world slowly forgot the tall tower on Long Island. Dust covered the land where Tesla once imagined a new age of energy. His laboratory grew quiet. His inventions were placed in boxes. His name appeared less and less in newspapers. But the ideas he left behind stayed alive, hidden, waiting for the right moment to rise again. The 20th century was fast, loud, and full of change. New companies built power stations. New machines filled the streets. Radios, telephones, and early computers shaped the world. But something strange happened. Every few years, a new invention appeared. Something that looked like a small piece of Tesla's old notes. Engineers developed wireless signals. Scientists studied the Earth's natural energy. Inventors created remote-controlled devices. Communications moved through the air instead of wires. Step by step, the world began to walk the path Tesla had seen long ago. By the time the 21st century arrived, everything changed again. People carried small devices in their pockets. A simple touch connected them to friends across the planet. Messages crossed oceans in seconds. News traveled faster than storms. Voices, pictures, and ideas moved through invisible waves, just like the vision Tesla saw in that quiet night in Colorado Springs. The world had finally caught up with him. Modern engineers looked at Tesla's patents with surprise. Many of his early designs looked familiar. They saw the first image of wireless communication. They found sketches of robots and intelligent machines. They studied notes about atmospheric electricity. They saw the roots of remote warfare, AI, drones, and global networks. Tesla had predicted much of the modern world. Not perfectly, but clearly enough that no one could ignore it. In universities, students learned his theories. In documentaries, people rediscovered his name. In cities, statues were built to honor him. Scientists spoke about him with admiration. They called him a man who lived in the future while standing in the past. Even technology companies used his ideas to shape new inventions. Wireless charging, smart grids, high-frequency communication, self-driving machines, energy research from the Earth and atmosphere. The world was finally ready for the questions Tesla asked a century earlier. But Tesla's legacy was not only in machines, it was also in the way he thought. He believed science should serve everyone. He believed knowledge should be shared. He believed the future belonged to humanity, not to companies or governments. He dreamed of a world where energy, information, and education were open to all people, rich or poor. In the 21st century, these ideas returned with new strength. People discussed clean energy and free knowledge. Movements pushed for open technology. Scientists worked to reduce pollution and protect the planet. Communities used global networks to learn from each other. It was as if Tesla's voice had finally reached the world. One evening, In a modern research center far from Colorado Springs, a young engineer read Tesla's old writings. The pages were yellow, the ink was fading, but the words were powerful. The engineer imagined Tesla standing near the Warden Cliff Tower, looking at the sky with hope. For a moment, the young man felt connected to him, like they were both dreaming the same dream, but in different centuries. Tesla did not live to see wireless phones, the internet, robots, or electric cars. He did not see machines thinking for themselves. He did not see his ideas becoming part of everyday life. But the world felt his influence everywhere. In every signal, every wave, every device that carried information without wires. In many ways, the 21st century became the world he imagined. Maybe not in the exact form he planned. Maybe not as fast as he hoped. But close enough for people to say, he saw it coming. One quiet night, long after the research center closed, the young engineer stepped outside and looked at the sky. The stars were bright, the air was calm, and the world was connected by millions of invisible waves. He thought about Tesla, alone in his laboratory, dreaming of a future no one else could see. The engineer whispered softly, "You were right. The world just needed time." And above him, the night sky seemed to agree. The future Tesla imagined was no longer a dream. It was real. It was here. It had arrived, exactly when humanity was finally ready to understand it.